Before we get started today, Steve, you've got something important that you'd like to say.
Yeah. So I was reached out to over Twitter the other day by the parents of an 11-year-old boy named Jude Strickland. He passed away recently due to a car accident. And listen, I know a lot of people listen to the show here, there, and everywhere. They listen to it in their car, especially. And if I can appeal to you, if you're about to get in your car or in it right now, drive carefully, drive with care, drive alert, stay off your phone, don't drive drunk, don't drive high, do your duty and keep others safe by being alert in your car. That's all I wanted to say, guys. That's all I wanted to say.
SDPP, the Steve Dangle Podcast, with your hosts, Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake.
What a delicious, unbelievable show. We've got Chris Johnston coming up in about 10 minutes to find out or to tell us what the hell's going on with the NHL.
Yeah.
Because I tried to watch all the roundups about what's happening with the NHL, and I was going to try to break it down for you. And I thought, why don't we have the professional do it? So he's going to do that for us.
CJ's been great with the updates. And he's had some World Junior stuff too. But can I tell you the emotion that I've had every morning for the past week?
Sure.
I'll see Pierre LeBrun's face on my timeline. Just his face, just the avatar. And I'll see that there's a tweet attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what the feeling is? Ugh, I'm about to read this. And that's not against Pierre. It's nothing against Pierre. But I just go, I'm about to find out. Let me guess. Close but no cigar? Again? Thanks for that. And it's just, we keep inching up little by little. Just
Poor
give
Pierre's
me it.
avatar's just sitting there minding its own business. Like,
It's just,
how do you think the medium that you get your hockey news from affects your perception of hockey right now?
oh my God, it's huge.
Like if you're getting it entirely from Twitter and you're seeing all these updates versus you're getting it from, you go to specifically to sportsnet.ca, or if you get it nightly on an update show.
If you get it from Twitter right now, you are pro canceling the entire World Juniors Championship. You are pro the NHL players should sit out the season. If you're on the right side, you are like, it's not you don't get a story, you get an opinion. And so
you're not making fun of those people, by the way.
No, but if you get
what you get.
If you get it from like TV, where just kind of the news, I feel like those people digest it much more rationally.
Oh yeah.
Well, because there's too much to it to put on Twitter. Adam, okay, by the way, the people who think they should cancel the World Juniors tournament based on what they're learning on Twitter, Adam is talking directly about me. Because if I'm only reading Twitter, which is all I've done really to consume information about this, everything I'm reading, why on earth would they have the World Junior tournament? But I need to seek some info elsewhere because Twitter is good. Twitter is a great moose-bouche. It's a decent little appetizer. It is you ever go to Baskin Robbins and they give you the little wooden little scoop?
That's part of it.
What does this ice cream taste like? And then you taste it and you go, I like that. I would like a much larger version of that.
Right.
Go out and find much larger version of that. It's like today I was tweeting about the vaccines because everyone has seen one tweet about there's allergic reactions to the vaccines.
Oh, God forbid.
There's allergic reactions to everything, people.
Every vaccine.
I have an allergic reaction to lactose, for crying out loud. If you go out and seek the long-term, or not long-term, long-form version of information, they will basically tell you, well, yeah, of course. And then they will tell you many more things. I tweeted about this Wendy Zuckerman's Science Versus. It's a shame because I feel like the podcast, I don't think this was their intention. I think they wanted to talk about lots of different topics. And if you go through their history, they talk about lots of them. And they also have special segments for non-COVID content. But they've just been nailing it every week. And they're like, here's the vaccine. Here's how it's made. Here's how it's distributed. Here's how it works.
Right.
Let's interview this doctor. Let's interview this scientist. Let's interview this person that was involved in the clinical trial. Let's interview this person who actually got it months before it was approved. Yeah. So anyway, I haven't watched any interviews about the World Juniors. I think what I'm trying to say.
I think I think obviously, and we can ask Chris about this. There's obviously some inherent risk with any hockey right now. I'm just not a big believer that just because something's hard, you don't do it. And I understand that these are children. In a lot of cases, these are children.
Yeah.
So I can understand that rationale. I completely get that argument. I think for me though, a couple of people I think there was 6 on Team Canada that tested positive, and then 5 were sent home for unfit to play. That means staff as well, and I know other teams and other players are feeling this. Listen, if they wouldn't have decided to go ahead with it, well, Sweden's got hammered. Sweden got hammered by COVID. Sweden tried to ignore COVID. I don't know if anybody saw that in the news, but Sweden, one of the leading countries in the world in healthcare and socialized medicine and socialized everything, said, you know what, we're just going to ride it out. They did the same thing the Americans did. Nothing. And it really bit them. And so I think, when you put on a tournament like this, to expect that before they're even in the bubble, that nobody's going to test positive. Well, I mean, I don't know who's made that expectation. Of course, people are going to test positive. Of course, that's going to happen. And if you're saying that's immoral, I say, yeah, you may have an argument. You may have a legit argument. But the fact is, they have decided to go forward with this. These kids whose guardians are their parents, in some cases, or who are young adults themselves, have decided to go forward with this. So the reality is that people who are in these kids' lives, I'm sorry, there's some construction going on downstairs at my place.
I thought it was Cedric.
No, it's just they're working on I live above a store, and they're converting the store. So they're just doing some hammering. So that's going to happen throughout the show.
I think the
point I'm trying to make here is that you accept this risk by being a part of this. I can guarantee you they've signed waivers and stuff like that. And if you thought that they were going to make it through this without positive COVID tests, that's crazy. I think what the point is that you're trying to find a way through this problem, as the NHL did with the bubble. And they've had a few more than they thought slip ups. And that's probably going to happen with teenagers, right? Like, they're just less responsible. They're probably less under control. Adults are probably going to be, well, my contract's on the line on this. Teenagers don't think like that. So,
yeah. And with the bubble, it wasn't international travel. Like, now they have entire teams of people coming from other countries to Canada. And in that gap, you don't know what this person was doing for the last year. And now they're coming to Canada, and then they have to get tested, and then they have to quarantine. So you're going to inherently get more positive results.
Right. But if you quarantine and you're negative, then you're negative. Like, they're recommending around the world that they reduce the quarantine days because it's 14 days. It's been 14 days forever. And they're saying now, reduce it, because if you got rapid tests and you test negative for a few days in a row, you don't have it. Right? So there's no point in quarantining for 14 days. That's the new argument.
Where'd you find that?
Oh my God.
Where'd you find it?
It was just something on the news, believe it or not.
What news? Where?
No. I don't remember specifically the
Get frigged then. Anyway,
the long story short is, yes, there is some inherent issues with this. I totally see that. But obviously they want to come through and see this as an opportunity to play some hockey and win over some fans. And they want to do it. And the players want to do it. And the coaches want to do it. And the countries want to do it. So there are going to be mistakes along the way. And that's where we have to get to. Bringing back Frosted Flakes for December. And obviously, it's Christmas time, and it's a nostalgic time. And you think about the memories of days past. We got Nick Kypreos coming up on the show. Chris Johnston will also be on as well. And Steve, the first thing I kind of want to ask you, instead of going back into the goals vault, let's go back into the Steve Stories vault. The first time you met Nick Kypreos. Go.
Well, yeah, I can't talk about Nick Kypreos' goals unless we're going to be talking about the OHL from around the same year I was born.
Stop it.
Listen, okay? Listen. No, he had, he's very quick to mention that he had 17 goals one year in Hartford. All right.
Yes.
But Nick Kypreos. So the way it all starts, we worked at Sportsnet together but it would be the same as Homer Simpson calling Mr. Burns his coworker. You know what I mean? Like I had never actually met him, and KYPER was a big deal. And I had made a video about tanking. This was the year before the Leafs drafted Austin Matthews. And I said it was awesome. It's a great strategy because a lot of players were calling it a disgrace and silly, and it's not the heart of the game or whatever. And so I leaned into it, and I made a video talking about how great tanking was. And then they show that clip on Sportsnet. They come back from the clip, and it's just Nick Kypreos staring daggers through the camera. And I'm just like, oh boy. And he goes, Steve Dangle in his rant, he doesn't come across as anything but a big loser. And my phone blew up. Like, I was watching that show, but I actually missed that part live. I was in the kitchen making a sandwich or something, and I come back and my phone is exploding. My Twitter is exploding. I got like my Uncle Dom going, I want to kick Kypreos' ass. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I see that. So then heading into those playoffs, the 2015 playoffs. So that would have been the McDavid tank. So it was even bigger than the Matthews tank. Sportsnet goes, we have an opportunity for you. You can help out, basically help get Sofia Jurcevic information, like help her prepare for her hits on Sportsnet.
Now she's with Nesson, by the way. Bruins
she's with Nesson, right? Covering the Bruins, ringside reporter for the Bruins. And so I got to sit in there with her and her producer, Amanda, and the big four at the time, whoever the big four were. Strombo was in there. Mm-hmm. Elliot Friedman.
Without a tie?
Oh, no, he had the damn tie on.
Oh, did he? Oh, yeah, he did have a tie.
He had the damn tie on, yeah.
He had a tie.
Why was that? Why was he wearing a tie?
That's the uniform. You want to play on Hockey Night in Canada, that's the uniform.
I'm sure Adam could tell that story another day. But yes.
Not my story to tell.
Nah, it'll be in your book.
Nah, there it is. That's not my story. It's not.
It was Friedge, Strombo, Kelly Rudy was also there. And there's Nick Kypreos. And I wasn't saying anything. I was scared of this guy because this guy he had the loudest voice in the room. He's just incredibly Greek in everything he does. And one day when I was wearing a long sleeve shirt with a short sleeve shirt over top of it, like an asshole, I don't know why I still dress that way. This was only 5 years ago. I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to introduce myself to him. I go, hey, Nick, I just want to say hi. And he's looking at me like, where do I know this guy from? I go, I'm Steve Dangle. You called me a loser. And he just goes, oh, like right away, like pats me on the shoulder, handshake, great to meet you. But hey, that was great. That's a great clip. That's a great clip. And like, he's super like playing up like, hey man, same team. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. Like whatever. Yeah. And I'm milking it for all it's worth. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. It's great that we're cool. Could I get a picture, please? So he took me down to the set. We took a picture of him. He's got me by the scruff of my shirt, and he's pretending to punch me. And that's when he had a very scary face on.
Yes. Yeah.
So for a brief minute, I felt slightly threatened, but no, I know he's a teddy bear, and I can't wait to talk to him again.
Excuse the drill. They're knocking down the building that I'm in. Listen, this is working from home, man. They're working on the store downstairs. I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, long story short, Chris, we were just talking about the World Juniors and talking about the positive COVID tests and stuff like that. We know you've been following this story. There's a lot of people who are just calling for it to be canceled. And that doesn't seem like the way. It doesn't seem like anybody here wants to cancel this, wants to not play it. Obviously, there have probably been a few more COVID positive tests than they would have expected. What do you think the situation here is going to be going forward? And how are they going to handle this as soon as the players get here? Are they going to be in a bubble?
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan, for the World Junior Tournament. They fly there on Sunday. and everyone's got to spend 4 days in their room, which is what happened with the NHL players when they came into the bubble, and then they're in the bubble. And so I think it actually is much like the NHL situation once they get there. Where all the press that's come out that I understand there's a lot of attention on it, is that, they're having trouble getting to the starting line, especially over in Europe, where, I think that the Swedish Federation is coming under a fair bit of fire because they didn't do a very good job of having their players kind of isolating at home, getting tested in advance of their camp, because there was a date here where if you got a positive test and we're past it, you're out for the camp no matter what. You can't, travel into Canada. So, I do think once they get there, it's going to be fine. I understand the sentiment to want to cancel it. I don't feel that way. I mean, look, we all know where sports ranks in the importance of things in the universe right now. If we didn't know that, 2020 has given us all the chance to review that. But I still think that this can bring a lot of happiness. You have to remember, for a lot of these kids, this is a once-in-a-lifetime tournament, even if this one won't be exactly the experience of a normal one, call it. And I think to take that away from them and to take that away from the viewing public is problematic. So I'm fine with them playing it. I think they'll do it safely. But it's been a rocky last couple days or weeks.
No kidding.
To talk about a specific team, one of the teams that is having particular trouble getting to the starting line is Team Sweden. How close are they to possibly not coming? And who do they have left?
They still have players because, all these teams have brought extra players to their camps, and they haven't actually pared the rosters down. They don't have very many coaches. And while we all can maybe argue there's too much coaching in hockey, I struggle to think of how they're going to get around the fact they've lost their head coach, an assistant coach, a video coach, and a goalie coach, all to positive COVID-19 tests. Now, they've been able to bring up their under-18 coach to be part of their camp, and I believe they have 2 others there. So my math is not great here, but they've got 3 coaches essentially in their camp, and they used to have 7. So, I don't know if there's going to be an exception made for them. I mean, at this point, even though they don't travel till Sunday, and we're talking right now on Wednesday afternoon, everyone's supposed to be in kind of a mini bubble before the travel. So, I don't know if they're going to be allowed to bring someone in from the outside, another coach from the Swedish Hockey League or someone maybe who's worked for the Federation in the past, but I do think of all the countries just looking at it, Sweden's in the most danger of not being able to come because they have had a number of players test positive. I suppose they could still have more. And not having a coaching staff, to me, or a full coaching staff, seems to be a pretty significant barrier to competing.
Well, and we were just mentioning it before. The whole country handled it in a very sort of surprising way for Sweden. COVID was not prioritized in the way that you would have thought a country like that would have prioritized it. So it's a very interesting sort of thing to watch from a global perspective. And obviously,
but what's interesting about that is that it was done on purpose. Like, it wasn't done out of haste. It was done sort of betting that there's a herd immunity.
Right. 100%.
By not locking down to the degree we did. And I don't know how history is going to look at this. Like, we're still judging it in real time, and it doesn't look great for Sweden. I know that their death rates on percentage basis are at a high level, but I mean, it's still probably too early, I would say, to say whether they did it right or not as a country. And it's going to be for the history books. It's not something we can judge at the moment.
Right. Exactly. So for now, it's a bit of a complicated situation. Now, Chris, we obviously, one of the issues that that everybody really wants to know about, and I know you and I were talking over text yesterday about how dry the subject matter is, but the NHL and coming back and how close and when, and let's talk about roster sizes and let's talk about division realignment. Like, where do we start here? Where is the NHL at today?
Well, how real do you want the talk?
Let's be real. Let's be real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. Like, I see everyone getting really excited.
Uh-oh.
And I want your enthusiasm. And honestly, I'm an optimistic guy. But
This is such a bad start. Oh my God.
Small little piece of caution, I would say, is that nothing is done until it's done. And I only say that because there's so many challenges here. And some of them are within the control of the league and the Players Association. Some of them are not. And, look, the NBA had 10% of its players almost test positive upon coming to training camps that have just started in the last week or so.
Oh my God.
We're seeing the NFL. Yeah, it was just slightly less than 10%. The NFL is like playing games every day of the week, which as someone with very little watch on TV, I don't mind. But I mean, it's doing that for the wrong reasons. It's because of the number of COVID tests and scheduling mishaps and starting wide receivers at quarterback. I mean, just look what's happening around the world. We've seen the Finnish League take a break. The Quebec Major Junior Hockey League's taking a break in December. And so I still think there's a world here where this doesn't happen and we just start on January 13th and there's 56 games and everything is perfect. So I don't want to be the rain on the parade, but it's not just even about a financial fight, although I still think that could be looming. It's not just about a quarantine set of issues, which I think are still complicated. It's not just about how are we really going to do 10-day training camps, no exhibition games, and launch into a season while a pandemic's happening. Well, they're going to further lockdowns in Pennsylvania. California is a mess. Obviously, the Sharks right now can't be at their rink. The Montreal Canadiens, as we're talking at this minute, are not allowed to even open their practice rink, and camp's supposed to open there in what, like 3 weeks? Like, there's just a lot of shit. And again, a lot of it is I'm not blaming it on the league, the owners, the players. Like, this isn't like the way it's been framed in the public is only like a small part of what they're dealing with. And so everyone I talk to, I'll put it this way. There seems to be a general understanding they're probably starting later. I hope I'm wrong. I want to see as many games as possible. I want to get going soon, but I just got a feeling that this is going to slide from January 13th.
Slide like you accidentally slip shoveling your driveway, or slide like a toboggan?
I hope it's I live in a condo, so I haven't slipped shoveling my driveway in a while, but I would say I just think a week or two to start, and I hope it's not worse. Look, I'm trying to be optimistic too. I'm not going to hide my allegiance. I work for the national rights holder in Canada. I mean, my own personal job future is somewhat tied to this. I just love it. I mean, I think like the listeners out there, I just love hockey. I'm not doing this for a job anyway. I just want something to do. But I don't think I just think that there's a lot of sledding here still. Steve, you shoveled just the end of your driveway and the snowplow's coming down the street, and you still got to do the rest. And let's just keep fingers crossed.
This is when the plow comes and you're finishing up and they put a bunch more snow right there at the end.
Yeah. And look, all the players are coming back. I actually spoke with Rasmus Sandin today. He's getting fired up to come back from Europe. I know Austin Matthews is thinking about coming back to Toronto, to focus on a couple of Leafs guys. And otherwise, I think there's about 20 players already here that have been skating at the practice rink, including guys who don't live here year round, like Freddie Anderson's come back. Zach Bogosian's here now. I mean, everyone is prepping like this is going to be the thing that's happening. And so, as I say, this isn't an issue of two sides that always fight and cause chaos, fighting and causing chaos, although there's an element of that. Mm-hmm. I just think we have to recognize that COVID and governments might have a say. And honestly, what it might just mean is maybe they start this season in bubbles again, just for a little while until it's safe to open in arenas.
When you're talking about some of the fun stuff like expanded roster sizes, what's that going to mean? Like for the average fan, I understand that it'll just be, there's more players available. But for us, the people that are like watching NHL stuff on YouTube and listening to it on Spotify, who are the hardcore, like how does that fit into the cap? What are they working on with that?
So this will be interesting, and look, this has not been finalized yet. This is just still at the stage where the NHL has presented this to the players, and so there still could be some tweaks. But in general, what's being discussed is expanding roster sizes to 25 or 26 players. Now, with those, let's say you're carrying 26, you'd have to be cap compliant with your 26, as far as I understand it. Now, for teams like the Leafs.
So Arizona can carry 40 people.
The Leafs, the Canadiens, the Vancouver Canucks, these kind of teams that are going to be right up against the ceiling, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Vegas, those teams aren't going to be able to carry 26 even if you're allowed to. However, there's also an additional 4-person taxi squad where those guys are kind of outside your cap. They're essentially, I think, considered to be in the minors, even though they're with your team, and they're there for emergencies, right? They're there in case both your goalies, produce a COVID test and you're on the other side of the country, which could happen theoretically to one of the Canadian teams with the travel that's going to happen in this all-Canadian division. And so one of the questions that was put to me by a team, and it's not the Leafs, just to dispel anyone who's out there guessing, by a team that's going to have some cap issues this year is, so how does that work for waivers? So if I have to put
I was going to ask, yes.
They're like, if I have to put someone through waivers, Well, but think about that. Not just a goalie. Like, let's say you are Ottawa or Detroit or teams with a huge amount of cap space. Can they just grab my guy off waivers and stash him on their 26 and never really play him, but just to have that guy as an asset and just because they have the cap space to do so? And so I think some of the maneuverings of how this work will, again, the devil will be in the details about that. But, what's interesting is that team, there could be an advantage there for the teams that don't have as many players because as much cap trouble as others, because they're going to be able to carry more players. I think they're going to be able to maneuver more. They might be able to steal guys off waivers. And, these teams that have spent closer to the ceiling, they're going to have to make do with less and just hope that they don't get a bunch of COVID tests or what have you.
I want to present you with a scenario, guys. This for what Chris is talking about. I was thinking about this earlier. So a lot of people have talked about the Aaron Dell signing and saying he's a pretty good third goalie for any NHL team to have. And it's surprising that he signed with the Leafs. Imagine they're in Vancouver in this all-Canadian division. Jack Campbell and Freddie Anderson test positive for COVID, and Aaron Dell gets claimed by the Calgary Flames because he's got to go through re-entry waivers.
There's no re-entry waivers.
No re-entry or taxi squad waivers. Like, are you able to just pull from the taxi squad whenever you need? Or is it, and that's, if they don't sort that out, that conceivably could happen.
Well, and what could happen just in general, the Leafs signed Aaron Dell to be their third goaltender, to be insurance. He would require waivers at the start of the year, let's say, if they had to get down under a certain amount. I haven't done the cap crunching, but I can guess that they probably don't intend to keep him on their opening day roster, as it's called, because they need every bit of space they can get. But, they also want to have him. And so I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, there's also a consideration, actually, you should mention, part of the rules that every team has got to carry 3 goaltenders all year long. I think just because you're trying not to have a Denver Broncos quarterback situation repeat itself in net. I mean, at worst, if you get a bunch of defensemen that go down, you can probably have forwards play defense. It's not ideal, but it's not a completely different position in the sense that, a forward can't really go and play net for you in an NHL game. Let's hope. I mean, we might see it this year. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, we thought David Ayres was a crazy story. Like, the odds of something crazier happening this year are possible.
Well, and we thought David Ayres was crazy, but David Ayres is a guy who plays goalie. He is a very good goalie. And I know for a fact that in his beer league, they were like, hey man, can you play out? Because he was too good for them. He's used to facing professional shots. What you're talking about is a situation like Connor Crisp.
Yes. You remember that. Erie.
Of course I remember that. So Erie Otters, they have one goalie. They're heading into a game because the goalie got hurt or sick or something like that. Ramis Sadikov, I think, was the name of the goalie. He gets hurt in the first minute of the game. And the Erie Otters have a forward sitting there as a healthy scratch named Connor Crisp. And he's like, I guess I'll play. And he's wearing his Connor Crisp jersey. And you realize it's not a goalie jersey, so it's very tight. And they lost, I think it was 13-4. Against, I think it was Ryan Strome, Dougie Hamilton. The Ice Dogs were loaded.
That should have been what happened with the Leafs and David Ayres, by the way. That's what the score should have been.
It was not.
It was.
I actually wish we know how much in-game money went on bets that would have been lost.
Oh yeah.
There must have been a
ton.
God.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they ever made that stuff. I know they got their deals in Vegas, and I know they're pretty limited at this point, but those kinds of stats are interesting. I
have unnamed media friends that lost some serious dough that day, and so that's what gave me the idea. And I'm sure they're not alone. I mean, think about it. You see, they pull a guy in who normally sits in the upper deck, and you're taking the Leafs over, you're taking Leafs plus 1.5, whatever. I mean,
yeah.
Who are the guys who had the angriest reactions? Let's go through. Oh, wait a sec. Okay, let's maybe not use that as the barometer. It wasn't me. I swear to God.
Chris,
Steve, why's your house for sale?
Listen, man. Now I got to move to Newcastle. Got to go even further east. This is bullshit. Anyway.
So Chris, I promised you we wouldn't take up too much of your time. We already have one last question. When you're looking at the month of December and the month of January, where between now and the supposed start of the season are we getting this announcement? How soon is this coming? If you were to just predict, we're not putting any money on it. When do you think this gets wrapped up and we know a specific date?
I'm hoping Friday. That's probably a little soon. Monday. I'll go with Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That's also soon.
Yeah.
Look here, so they're having a board of governors meeting today, an owners meeting on Wednesday afternoon. That was originally scheduled for Thursday, and the thought then was that they could potentially during that meeting be voting on something. Now, I was told it was moved because they don't anticipate by Thursday there'll be something to vote on. But I think by early next week, I mean, look, if you're having players start January 3rd for training camp, I mean, let's just work backwards. What day is today? So it's the 9th.
Yep.
So Monday would be the 14th. I mean, we still got tons of guys in Europe. They got to come back. They got to serve quarantines. They have to be ready to skate. I mean, they need an answer, I would think, by Monday. So what'll be interesting, I guess, is how they announce this, because I don't know that they can say Monday, 100% we're starting January 13th. I think they can say, look, we want to have camps on these days, tentative January 13th start, depending what happens. But I think we're getting an announcement really soon here just because there's players that are just waiting to book a flight.
Yeah, no kidding.
All three
Chris,
of us are smiling.
If I could ask you one more quick question. I saw a lot of takes today about how the veteran players, by not conceding more money for this upcoming season, are just kicking the can down to the younger players in the future years. Do you think that's what's happening here? Is the NHL PA just kind of hurting the future of the league in terms of the money they can make as players?
Well, it's 100% what's happening, but I think we should recognize that's what unions do. And it's that doesn't just stop at like professional sports unions. Right. I mean, let's look at the history here. At one point in time, Colby Armstrong's a good example. My colleague at Sportsnet, I think he was drafted in 2002. You can fact check me there. Anyway, I know it was before the 2004 lockout, and he was drafted in the 20s in the first round. And I believe the signing bonus he got was somewhere like $1.2 or $1.4 million as a 20-something pick. And that was just straight money he got before he was ever an NHL player. 2004-05 lockout comes around, and what does the union do? They allow this creation of an entry-level system that basically limits what all first, second, and third-year players in the league forevermore can earn, because they didn't want to give up certain things that were affecting the current day unionship. So this is a normal thing. It's just, in this case, it's so extreme, that we can see what the problem is going to be. I mean, this entire CBA is written around the fact that normally it's a 50-50 split of revenues, that the players are going to draw more revenues than the owners in the beginning, and that they're going to have to pay that back. And so there's going to be a tab in year 4 or 5 or 6. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball for what revenues are going to do, but with 100%, by trying to insist to get as much of their contracts today, it's going to impact what players a few years down the road can earn. But I also think the players a few years down the road will do that with the next deal for the players after them. Like I do think
kick the can down the road.
Keep going.
But I have to be clear here that I'm not being critical of the players for doing that. I just think that's what unions do. Honestly, like even I used to work at a union place. It's not my current place of employment. And at one point they said, okay, everyone who starts now gets worse benefits. You guys still get the old benefits, but everyone that starts now gets these like lower tier benefits. I mean, it's just what happens, unfortunately. And so these guys that haven't even played a game yet, some guys we've never even heard of their name that are going to be NHL stars are probably going to be limited in what they can earn because of, look, it's because of the pandemic too. It's not just because of this one decision. It's
of course.
Actually, if you look at our country, I mean, not to turn political, but we're giving away a ton of money as the CERB benefit, which I'm all for. I mean, we have to support people whose lives are changed here. But we're like, think of the debt the Canadian government's accruing right now. That's screwing the next generation of Canadians more than it is. It's to help today's generation, but the next generation will pay for that. And so again,
you're saying it'll be 75 to 100 years before this debt's paid off.
Right. So we're selling our kids and our kids and our kids' kids down the road with that decision. I don't blame them for making it. Mm-hmm. I don't really blame the players here for, look, it's hard to believe, but there are some NHLers who need this money. I mean, not everyone has a huge stack in the bank and a huge stack to come. And so I don't blame them for, they also feel like they negotiated to get 72% of their salaries this season. And so they're holding firm on that, but there will be repercussions.
Wow.
To answer your question, Colby Armstrong was drafted 21st in 2001.
Right. So back in the day when you were drafted in 2001, you could get $1 million plus signing bonus before you'd even played a game. Now the top pick overall gets a $92,000 signing bonus.
Wow.
And so it's a huge difference, right? Because Colby thankfully had, a career, and he did have subsequent contracts and made money. But some of those guys that signed those $1 million signing bonuses never really made it. They didn't pan out, right? But they still had that $1 million, at least if they were smart. And Colby was smart. He actually made some investments that are still paying off for him today. But,
good for him.
But I don't know how much he wants me to divulge on here. So I'll stop.
We'll have him on sometime. We'll be like, Colby, tell us about your portfolio.
Well, he might. I mean, he's pretty open about it. And I'm just using his example to show, though, how things change from his generation to this one. And
doesn't he have like 6 kids? Like, he's just having the best life.
Yeah.
He's got
4
a whole
kids.
line.
4 kids. 4 kids. Yeah. Like, he's just living the life. He's the happiest man, I think, on earth.
He is, and I've been to his house too. Like, they're all young kids. Back when we could travel, like a year ago, I was at his house, and they're all over the place tearing it up. And
I bet.
yeah, he's in it right now. He's like him and Mel, his lovely wife, are in the thick of it.
Well, good for them. Chris Johnston, Sportsnet.ca, Sportsnet online, Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and every other Sportsnet property every day, all the time. We really appreciate making time for us, as always, buddy. Like, 4th member of the show, coming in hot. And we've got lots to talk about in the future, in the very near future. And we're very excited about that as well.
That's true. And let's hope we get a Hockey Night in Canada again soon. You can throw headlines on Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah.
Assuming we get some games.
Can you send me like a resume, though, so I know which ones to hit first from now on? Because it's a lot. You do a lot. It's a lot. It's aggressive.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Thank you, Chris.
See you guys.
For comparison to that less than $1 million signing bonus that you can sign in the NHL, Zion Williamson currently makes $44 million over 4 years. So NBA money, NHL money.
Yeah, that's why when players like Jeremy Roenick speak up and they're like, young guys shouldn't make this much money. Remember when he tweeted that? They're like, yeah, you're one of the guys that sold out the players in the 2004 thing, because he'd signed that huge deal with Ed Snyder and the Philadelphia Flyers. It was a 6-year, $36 million contract.
And he was way at the back end of his career. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up, buddy. That's what. If I was one of the younger players,
I'd be like, excuse me?
I wonder how many fights there were because of how players voted. Like some 22-year-old is, sees a 36-year-old. He knows how he voted during the CBA negotiations. He's like, you know what? I'm going to punch this guy in the face.
Yeah, but if he did that, he might end his career. Like, 36 is your, and it's funny, a lot of those old guys voted that way and then found themselves out of the league because the game changed completely. Like, within a couple of years, most of those older players with big money were gone or bought out. And so it's very, if you go back and you look, the washout rate, as much as I hate to put it that way, the washout rate after that lockout in 2004 was enormous. Like, just
the game was different. Like, overnight, it was a completely different game.
Yeah, 100%.
Adam, you could do a better job explaining this than I could, but for just you kids out there who don't remember, Bryan McCabe was a really good defenseman in the NHL.
Yep.
Scored a ton of goals, good offensive defenseman. He played on Team Canada at an Olympics, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he was the 7th D or something.
And he was always in the conversation. Yeah. He was even in the conversation for the Norris Trophy for at least the first half of the season 1 year with the Leafs.
Brian Leach called him the best defensive partner he's ever had.
Jesus, right?
Like, that's crazy.
But with one rule change, his signature sort of body check, the can opener, was made illegal. What can you describe it?
So what he would do is, let's say Jesse and his gigantic, long, beautiful legs are coming at me. He's skating down the wing and he's going to pass me, right? I haven't, for whatever reason, transitioned properly, so I'm not able to match him in speed, and I'm not going to be able to catch up to him. As soon as he passes, right before he passes me, when we're chest to chest, I have my stick between his legs, and it just happens to be there. Doesn't mean that I put it there. It just, oopsies, it's there. So Jesse tries to skate by me, catches his stick, and it's almost like slipping on a banana in Mario Kart. He's out. And it was something that Brian used to perfection. Now, Brian would really sell it. So he would get his chest into it because he's 6'4" and he was very chesty. He was a very, very good shape. So he'd have you, and that was sort of the clutch and grab era too. So you could kind of pull a guy in, and guys would be falling down trying to get by him all the time. And if you watch that old game footage, like if you have Leafs Nation Network or something like that, you'd be able to see Bryan McCabe pulling that stunt all the time. And
what's it called?
The can opener. And it was actually him. It was like, it's like the Sean Avery rule where he's waving the stick in Broder's face. Or is it Lundqvist's face? Broder's face. That rule changed because Bryan McCabe was so effective at it. Nobody thought of it.
There is a Bryan McCabe tribute on YouTube when you type in can opener, Bryan McCabe can opener, and it has it in there.
It's really good. It's really, really good. It was a smart, honestly, those little innovations sometimes, as much as it's definitely tripping, those little innovations are sometimes the things that I like the most about the NHL, and it's unfortunate that they get rid of them. Like, I didn't mind. People got so upset about the Sean Avery just literally getting into Martin Brodeur's face. He didn't touch him. He didn't do anything. He just got in his face. And the second that game ended, the NHL's like, we're passing a law. This cannot happen anymore. And
which, by the way, you cannot just change the rules mid-season, mid-playoff, which they did. When you think about it, man, you're right. That should absolutely still be allowed. Avery wasn't participating in the play.
What did he do? Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It was they said it wasn't in the spirit of the game because he's not participating in the play. But that, to me, that's participating in the play, throwing the goalie off.
But if you listen to, I think they were on Chicklets. If you listen to Scott Gomez, it was talk about it because it was great hearing Avery's teammates' perspective of it because he was on the ice with him. It was a 5-on-3, and Gomez I think it was behind the net with the puck, and he was a playmaker. And he's like, put your stick on the ice, you moron. This is a tap in. What the So, like, just because they scored, like, people forget, like, it wasn't, Avery didn't have his hands in Brodeur's face.
And even if he did.
And that's, yeah, but regardless, Avery didn't have his hands in his face and then the puck went in. He was doing that. Then some other things happened. And then the puck went in.
Yeah.
And if Brodeur was rattled, and that's your argument, well, yeah, I mean, just make Brad Marchand illegal then.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
that's his whole thing.
Yeah, no, Brad Marchand licked a guy, and they're like, no, it's cool. And like,
and then he licked a guy again.
You know they did it again.
Hey, Bruins, can you talk to him? I'm sure that we don't need to pass a lot. Let's just have the Bruins talk to him about it.
I cannot believe that his punishment for that was we'll talk to him.
Yes,
it was gross.
I know.
Like, it was just gross.
Especially
don't do that.
Now in the COVID era, how gross that is.
You know, go to jail.
Like, I'm at the point where when I see people hug on TV, I'm like, yo, that's fucking dangerous. What's wrong with them? You know what I mean?
And by the way, for everyone who's going to chirp me for the Bryan McCabe Norris thing, you can all frig off because in the 05-06 season, 73 games, he had 19 goals, 49 assists, 68 points.
He was absolutely in the conversation. Had they had a goalie that year, they would have been in the playoffs.
Also,
116 penalty minutes.
The sixth video down when you just type in Bryan McCabe on YouTube, the sixth video down is a really grainy video of a guy named Steve Dangle who's talking about Bryan McCabe getting traded, and it has 9,000 views.
Whoa, yo, hold on, you've been doing.
I can't believe it has that many.
A was a Leaf.
Yeah, September 7th, 2008.
I've told the story a thousand times, but the sixth or seventh video of the first season I did Leaf videos was the game where Bryan McCabe scored on the Leafs on his own net against the Sabres. And Jeff Veillette owned a website at the time, and he was only 15. And he featured me on it.
Was that the BryanMcCabeSucks.com?
Yeah, I feel he does not like being associated with that, and
he created it.
I did not know that.
Listen, we all did. Okay, we all did shit in our teens that we regret. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just put that out there. He was a teenager.
He was 15.
He regrets it. Fair.
If you hold it against him, you're the asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, he featured the video on that website, and that was one of the first things that sort of catapulted me forward.
Wow.
I was also on BlogTO. So I have Bryan McCabe to thank for that. And then I got to meet him at the Centennial Classic.
Look at the comments too. Like, I'm looking at, like, there are comments on here that are 12 years old.
A lot of them are from you.
Yeah, like, you respond to people.
I'm probably telling people they're assholes.
And people are like, any idea how long Mike Van Ryn is locked up for?
Oh, I know, because he was traded for Mike Van Ryn.
There's no cap friendly. You couldn't just look it up.
That's right.
Yeah, I used to not handle criticism well.
You know, it's a funny it's funny kind of going back and seeing that as well. Like, there's that one video where Steve's just like, I'm upset, and it's like 30 seconds long, and he goes, fuck this, and then like goes off camera, and that's it. Like, I forget what it was, but
I don't remember.
I think, your first video is just making fun of headlines on the Toronto Sun.
It's 16 seconds long. I wasn't putting a lot of content planning into it. Oh man.
Well, listen,
thank God I didn't make YouTube videos when I was 15. It would have been a lot more embarrassing than Jeff's website.
100%, man. What do you got to say at 15 that's intelligent? Come on. Now.
Well, when I was 15, I would have told you a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And now that I'm 32, I can tell you no.
So there are very few 15-year-olds with well-rounded worldviews. Okay.
Yeah. No offense, everybody, but
no offense. At 15, you're offensive. That's what it is to be 15. That's what happens. It's okay. Yeah, man. That's why we have childhood, adulthood. We need a few more years of seasoning.
That's why teachers don't make enough money.
True.
They have to deal with the worst people in society, and that's
at the worst time. Yeah. At the worst time. Yo, think about grade 7 and grade 8 and how just objectively shitty everyone is.
And you're around all
everyone sucks.
You're extra rowdy because you're showing off.
And you do that for 30 years? Dealing with 30 shitty kids for 30 years? That's insane.
Yeah. Most of my teachers I was pretty cool with, but there's an English teacher, there's a French teacher. Like, I just want to find them like in the phone book and be like, I'm sorry. That was half my life ago and I was an asshole, but I am sorry.
I actually did apologize to a teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Years afterward?
Yeah, 100%. It was our drama teacher, Miss Kish. We're friends on Facebook and stuff now, but Steve talked about it in his book, but we had a play that Steve and I were both in, both lead actors, and there was 3 different acts in it. And I was in the 3rd act, and
I was Boone.
It kind of coincided with a lot of stuff that was going on at home at the time, which I won't get into. But the crux of it for me was like we did this play over and over again, 5 to 6 days a week for 6 months, and it got to the point where it's like, this is excessive, this is too much, and my grades were slipping. So my parents were naturally upset about that, and my grades weren't good, so there wasn't like a lot of room to slip anyway. And long story short, we kind of got testy with each other a couple of times. And, one of the things that I've told her since then, and this is a couple of years ago when she added me and we were going to do like a big theater Moet sort of get together. She wanted to do something at a pub.
We were going to do that this year.
Yeah, it was supposed to be this year.
Because we got added to the Wall of Fame, and I haven't even seen the damn plaque.
Yeah, we're on Wall of Fame at MOA, both of us, and we can't see it. But the thing is that I reached out, when she reached out and added me, I thought I was touched because I thought, man, after the way I acted, I wouldn't have added me. And I messaged her and I said, how are you? Like, we chat, it was all pleasantries. And then I said, listen, I need to tell you something. I was super shitty and it wasn't cool. And I apologize. And I just want you to know that, and this is the truth. No teacher had a greater effect on my life afterwards than what Miss Kish taught me. She taught me how to perform. She taught me how to carry myself on stage, how to project, how to enunciate, how to engage an audience. How do you engage 500 people and make it feel like you're talking directly to just them? She spent hours and days of time that she'd work a whole day and then we'd be there till 10 o'clock at night rehearsing. And like,
you were a giant dick.
And I was an asshole. Like, she wasn't getting paid for that. She just did it because she loved it. She wrote the fucking play too. Like, you have no perspective at 15 and 16, none. And so I just, I'll say it to my dying day. There's not a single teacher I have ever had who's had a bigger effect on my career than Janet Kish. And I just didn't know it at the time. So that's the way it was.
You know why I took drama, Adam? Because I originally took visual art. I was pretty good at drawing, and I didn't like sitting in that class after gym because I had it after gym. I was like, ugh, I'm sweaty. I need to go to class after gym where I'm still active. And it was my friend Adam Rodricks, actually. He convinced me. He's like, oh, come take drama with me. And now he's like some top 100 in Canada public speaker. He interviewed Masai Ujiri. He's ridiculously successful, that guy.
Yeah, Adam was our valedictorian, so it just puts that in perspective.
He was. That's
right. A beloved person, and rightfully so, and an unbelievable speaker and a very, very intelligent human being. So I think he was working for Air France for a while or something, and now it's KPMG or something. But he's doing well.
He's you know what? He's working for whatever the fuck he wants. That's how successful he is.
One of those guys. Now we've got Nick Kypreos coming up in about 20 minutes to talk about his new book. Also want to talk to him about the state of the game, but there's a couple of things that I want to get to before that, and we could actually talk to him about this. But let me ask you something. You are a free agent this fall, right? Because it was in the fall. And you are, as Steve called John Tavares a couple of summers ago, the belle of the ball. Who are you?
This upcoming summer?
No. This past fall. Who was the belle of the ball?
Taylor Hall.
Okay, who was the other belle of the ball?
Oh. Alex Pietrangelo?
Yeah, who I would argue is the bigger belle of the ball. To be honest with you.
You're right. You're right. I got it wrong.
Yeah. So Alex Pietrangelo looks at his life and goes, okay, he said he wanted to sign in St. Louis. They went out and they got Torrey Krug, so he wasn't going to stay there. And there was a few other options I think that might have been available. The market was depressed a little bit, teams with less money to spend, but he ends up at the team we all thought he was going to end up with, Vegas, right? If you're Alex Pietrangelo,
it was a lot of chest puffing. He was always going there.
Yeah, he was always going there. And Chris came on and told us at the time why you would want to go there. It's the place to be. But Brian Burke brought up I think it's probably one of the best Brian Burke points, and we should have asked him when we had him. There were so many things I wanted to ask him. One of the best Brian Burke statements we've ever heard in broadcasting is the 2-year rule in Vegas. Everybody's there for 2 years, and then they kick you out. And when you see Max Pacioretty's name come up in trade rumors, if you're Alex Pietrangelo, are you not just a little bit upset? This is a guy that scored 30 goals, does it all the time. Yes, you could argue he might be a depreciating asset, but he just scored 30 goals. I would say that I would be upset about that. I would say part of the reason I signed with Vegas is that Max Pacioretty is playing there and I can pass to him if I'm Alex Pietrangelo. What do you make of the rumors today that Fleury, obviously, Pacioretty and others are potentially on the trade market?
Well, it's all very confusing because are the Vegas Golden Knights good? Are they one of the best teams in the league?
Yes. Has to be. I mean, Western Conference Final, Stanley Cup Final, Western Conference Final. Was
Nate Schmidt part of that?
Yes.
What if you put Alex Pietrangelo in and take Schmidt out? Are they better? Probably.
You're better, but I don't know how much.
I don't know how much, but you're probably better, but I don't know how much. Now, what if you add Alex Pietrangelo, but you take out Nate Schmidt and you take out Max Pacioretty?
You're worse.
That's difficult. Now, you are going to get something for Max Pacioretty.
Maybe.
But what is that? Are you going to have to sweeten it? It's weird. You ever look at Vegas and the moves they make? And it's difficult because it's hard to look at the results of their first 3 seasons and think they've made too many mistakes. I mean, they made Stanley Cup Final, one of the most bizarre finishes to a first round ever, and the third round.
Yeah.
This past year. And we all thought they were going to the Cup Final. We did. So kudos to Dallas for beating them. But I look at some of the trades they did, and Max Pacioretty is part of a unbelievable digging up scenario with them. They traded a first, second, and third for Thomas Tatar.
Yeah.
Did not play him. It's not even that he was bad. They didn't play him. They did not play him. And then what was the package? The package was Thomas Tatar,
Nick Suzuki,
a second rounder, I think, and Nick Suzuki for Max Pacioretty. And now you're going to trade him for what? It better not be a sweetener to go with him. And I know COVID and there's obviously different circumstances than there were even a year ago, a calendar year ago. But that is a pretty terrible digging up scenario. That's horrible. And Vegas, they have drafted decently, and they got some guys coming who can help replace Max Pacioretty's offensive output. I would assume Alex Pietrangelo is part of replacing his offensive output, but Yeah, like you said, for crying out loud, 32 goals, 66 points. And, he wasn't as good in the playoffs, but he was still half a point a game. What else do you want from this guy?
That's what he does. You got Max Pacioretty for that. And then what do you replace him with?
I'm trying to think of the players they have in their system. Here, maybe I can look at it.
Well, they've dealt a lot of them, right?
That's part of I mean, boy, you know who would look great for them is Nick Suzuki. But,
wouldn't he?
But I mean, at least you had I get it. They were under the impression their time to win is now. If I was them, I would definitely think that too.
So here's what Frank Saravalli's says. He said that there's 3 years and $7 million a year coming on.
I would assume
find a taker.
Sorry to interrupt, just real quick. I would assume Cody Glass is going to get a much bigger role, but beyond that, I'm not totally sure. Sorry.
If you could find a taker for Pacioretty, apparently what McCrimmon and McPhee want to do is go after Mike Hoffman or Eric Haula.
Mike Hoffman makes a little bit of sense.
Yes, but what are you going to get?
It's not replacing the production.
Well, it may do the goals, but I think Pacioretty brings a lot more than goals, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a responsible player. And obviously you have Mark Stone as well, who was a responsible player, but I think you've got to have, I mean, I understand the draw, right? You could get potentially, let's say Hoffman's good for 28 and Pacioretty's good for 33. So you take that, and then you probably could get Hoffman for 3.5 at this point. Really, let's be honest.
Probably cheaper.
Yeah.
He's been sitting out the whole time. So if you even if you get him for 2 something, that's $5 million extra. And then you're spreading that around. So you're like, okay, I replace almost all of the goal production, plus I get $5 million. That seems like a smart financial play.
How are you going to take him?
Now, yes, you could get some of Pacioretty's production from him, but I still remember this on free agency day coverage on Sportsnet. I always take a look at who's at the kids' table because sometimes it's me. And in the ice surfing studio, it was Carolyn Cameron and Justin Bourne. And Justin Bourne did a buyer beware segment, and Mike Hoffman was on it.
Now, why did he say that?
Yeah,
because his fancies are garbage. He's
and Vegas pays attention to that, by the way.
Of course, most teams do these days. He's a defensive liability, and I think in most years you go, yeah, that guy's a defensive liability, but scores 30 goals. We'll figure it out. But now that nobody has any money, it's a different conversation. And he probably thought he was going to cash in, and right. I would have too, if I were him. And he's gotten boned. Yeah, basically. So this, Mike Hoffman should look at this as a very potentially unique opportunity, because Vegas could trade Patches, and then he could swoop in there in probably a reduced role, but probably get lots of power play time and join a team that has a really legitimate shot at winning the cup.
If you're a team like Columbus that's got a ton of cap space, you could grind Vegas on this one. Like let's say they take $2 million off Max Pacioretty, 66 points for $5 million a year on a team that can't score goals with a veteran guy. That's a great leader, been a captain in Montreal, which is not an easy market to be a captain in. Boy, I think Tortorella would be, and Jarmo Kekalainen for that matter, would just be, salivating at something like that. That's a perfect guy for them. That's perfect for their system. I think if I'm looking at it, if I were to cap this, if I think there's any team that would be interested in it, I think it's Columbus, because I think they look at what they did to the Leafs and think, if we had a little bit of goal scoring, the smothering hockey that we play with a guy like Seth Jones coming into his prime, and 2 good goalies and Zach Werenski on the way up. Although apparently, according to Aaron Portzline, there's potential he gets traded. There's a lot of good coming out of Columbus, and they kind of got through the 2 years where they weren't going to have any draft picks, which is last year in this draft. So there's lots. I feel like Columbus to me is a sleeper to pick up somebody here.
So if you're Columbus and you're looking for offensive production, why not just sign Mike Hoffman, the 30 and 30 guy, and then just accept the whatever defensive liabilities we think he has and not take on the 3 years of max?
I have an answer for you. Your coach is John Tortorella, and he won't play him.
Why wouldn't he play him?
Tortorella does not play guys that are defensive liabilities. He will not play him.
If he wants him to play defense, then he'll expand his defensive role and he'll make him good at defense.
Torts hates that shit.
He didn't do it with Duclair.
With who? With Duclair?
Anthony Duclair.
Wouldn't play him.
Not just wouldn't play him, said he can't play.
Yeah.
And then he hung a hat trick on him. God,
Torts
that
would
had to feel
literally,
so good.
like Hoffman and Torts would be oil and water. His style of play versus and Torts' yelling and very defensively strict manner. There's a reason that hasn't happened already. And Jesse, on paper, it makes a ton of sense. But John Tortorella will never, ever, ever be a good coach for Mike Hoffman. Just wouldn't work.
They also gave up, a decent amount for Ryan Dzingel, who is sort of a weaker version of that. Like he can score. He's not a good defensive player. I know Torts is known for being unreasonable. I don't know if he's that unreasonable. I think he could figure out how to make it work. This is a player who you got to protect a bit.
Well,
you know who I think could isolate him and protect him quite a bit is Vegas.
Hoffman?
Oh yeah.
Oh, 100%. That's why I think he's a good fit there. Is they've got great defense and great and forwards that are great, responsible guys. So Hoffman doesn't need to play that role. Right? In Ottawa, he didn't play that role. Right? They had when they were good. It was like Carlson and Hoffman doing crazy shit, like the football pass. But they had a bunch of guys around them that were going to take care of it if those guys got caught.
If Vegas can find a way to get rid of Pacioretty's contract without bringing too much back, it's amazing what COVID has done to the cap situation, because you could potentially take that money that you saved on Pacioretty and get Hoffman and Duclair. Because that's just what both those guys should be getting, the biggest contract of their lives, and it's just not there. And it's amazing they're both still available. And Holla, you mentioned right off the top, I forgot he was even an option. It's unbelievable.
What do you think a guy like Anthony Duclair is worth, though? Like I was curious. I know he did really well in Ottawa for the season, but as we saw with Ryan Dzingel, somebody's got to score, right? And I don't know is Anthony Duclair a top 6 guy on a Stanley Cup winning team?
You know what, man? I've always hated that. I've always hated the someone's got to score, because I remember reading that in the hockey news years ago when I was bored at the zoo. And do you know what player they were talking about? That even on bad teams, someone has to score. Do you know what player they were talking about?
Who?
Mark Savard on the Thrashers. Mark Savard did not score because he was on the Atlanta Thrashers. Mark Savard scored because he's fucking sick. so
well, he proved that when he went to Calgary and Boston, right? Like, he was great.
Yes. So that's it was I didn't like that they said that about Mark Savard, and I greatly enjoyed that time proved that to be ridiculous.
Fair enough.
Now, Anthony Duclair, man, it's so hard to judge, because he's exactly the guy. He might be getting saved from himself in a way, because he's exactly the sort of guy who in free agency gets overpaid. Like, I see what you're saying. Like, he had the one hot season, and then you give him money and term. I think he's a good enough player that you can risk giving him one. Like, you can give him.
If he wanted one, he could have had 2 and signed for multiple years in Ottawa. Like, that was the numbers they were throwing. There's like $1.5 $2 million in term.
Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe the tax thing is. I mean, the tax thing is a huge deal. Brian Burke talked about it extensively last show. Although going to Vegas would alleviate that for him.
I got to be honest with you. I think if you have the right accountant, there's ways around that. I really do. I think that's an outdated view. I think there are plenty of people who have figured that out. So
one thing that's also not considered is you're only taxed for the games you play in that city. So 41 of your games are taxed around the rest of the National Hockey League.
Is that true?
Yeah,
that is true.
If you play in Toronto, you're only taxed for the home games you play in Toronto, and the rest are taxed across the rest of the 41 games.
Oh, the All-Canadian division. Oh, that sucks for those guys.
Well, they're not going to play as much.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Just hope that most of your games are in Alberta.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah. Accountants are good people.
Yeah, man. Come on. They can figure.
Well, No, I'm joking.
All right, there's nothing wrong.
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about them to say that they suck. But it's
there's don't say they're great.
Yeah, no, I think they're bad actually. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Actually bad. Steve Dangle, hater of accountants.
No, let me just say it. I'm a fan.
Oh,
me too.
Yeah,
me too. And I'm a guy who doesn't mind paying his taxes and does frequently.
Duclair. Sorry, I'm just looking at his numbers. Yeah, he was poor in Columbus. Not even really. He was just sort of one-dimensional. 11 goals, 8 assists, 19 points in 53 games. The second he went to Ottawa, this isn't even this past season where he was hot. He had 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 points in 21 games. That's Steve, like a 50-plus point pace.
What do you say? What's the internal Sportsnet view on happiness? And I've heard it. You've heard it.
The what? Don't F with happy?
Don't fuck with happy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot I already said fuck.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with happy.
So that to me is something he's got to consider as well. Oh, look who it is.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Nick Kypreos, everybody.
Hey. We didn't even announce he was going on.
I know. Well, we did. I did earlier. But Nick, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
How are you?
Loud and clear. I'm well. How are you guys? You look great.
Good.
Here, I'm about to be better. Here, one minute. Let me just. Here we go.
That's awesome.
Never without a beverage to sell, and this time a book as well.
It's like room service.
Nick Kypreos, by the way, this guy is so funny. So he's got this new book, Undrafted. On the back, the what do you call it? The
back.
The back. Whatever you call it when there's writing on the back, he got Bob McKenzie, and he's not cited as Bob McKenzie at TSN. He's cited as Bob McKenzie, one of those fuckers from TSN.
No way.
And he signed it for me. And he put Steve Dangle Glynn tanks a lot for leading the digital charge.
Nice.
He didn't call me a loser though.
No, not yet. Not this time.
and you apparently you like the signature too.
I do like the Siggy. I'm selling the book for sure.
Are you you were never an autograph guy, were you, growing up?
No, I never met any players, Nick. I never really met any players. The only player I really met was Chris Draper, and it's because he visited my grade 2 class because we went to the same elementary school. That's it.
I did hear that story. Yeah, and Drapes and I trained together at the Fitness Institute in our early days. And, he had a great career, but it was great hearing that story. I was in a similar boat like you. I didn't meet many players. I could never really get tickets to a Leaf game. And I do have this one story of an open practice in my book. And the Leafs were notorious every year to have a Dominion Day where they just opened up the Maple Leaf Gardens to fans who wanted to watch the Leaf practice. And I started in the Grays and I worked my way down to the ice, and I got a stick from Jack Valaket, who was a former first rounder. And I fought tooth and nail to get it out of that building.
Nick, I'm surprised that anybody would have had the gall. I don't know how old you would have been at this point, but to challenge you for it, because you were not shrinking violet during your career.
Well, that I evolved in that. And I do talk a lot about the book on how you have to kind of reinvent yourself if one particular thing wasn't going too well for you. And I was a big goal scorer, guys, in junior. And although I was able to put the puck in the net a little bit with the Hershey Bears in the American Hockey League, it just didn't transcend into the NHL. So I'm like, okay, plan B, beat people up or try.
Right? And then plan C, broadcaster. Which worked out pretty darn well.
A big plan C, but it wasn't plan C because plan C was get into broadcasting, get fired, and then try to do everything you can to hold on to your job for 20 years more. And I got fired my first year. Scott Moore let me go. And the story goes as it is in the book that I found a way to convince him to hang on with the help of a print media guy named Bill Houston from the Globe and Mail, who ran this Truth and Rumors article that leaked a story that I was fired. And that eventually saved my job, believe it or not.
Wow. I'm gonna have to check that.
Yeah.
How you feel about the online sort of digital podcast world now?
I don't know how you did it, man.
A lot of this, Nick. A lot of the little Buddha.
Yes. Yeah. No. And you know, I know I wrote my note to you on the book on, you know, tongue in cheek, but you did it first, man, as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, to watch the whole thing evolve in the last few years and to understand that, you know, from a real structural point of view of how I absorbed broadcasting to what I see it now is night and day. And I like it. I really do. I love the fact that, you know, I could still be in my pajamas and do a show in my basement and still in many ways reach out to more people than Sportsnet or TSN or Hockey Night can ever do. And you were the first one to pull hockey fans from all over the globe, as far as I'm concerned. And that's a really cool thing, man.
Oh gosh.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's high praise. Wow. Nick, I mean, listen, it's been a few years and we referenced the show that you were on with us all the time. It's it was one of those indelible, unbelievable shows that you'll remember forever because it was just a pile of fun. And I got to ask you for everybody that I've talked to, everybody that we know at Sportsnet, that we know around the industry, and you know, given we're not insiders, but we know the other broadcasters. Everybody to a person talks about what a great teammate you are. That's the word they use, teammate. And you know, we're in broadcasting. We rarely call each other teammates, but that's what they say about you. Have you, you know, with this new chapter that you're kind of working on? Obviously, it's got to be difficult not to be around people all the time because I know you're a pretty social guy, or at least it seems that way. But do you still have the love for it? Are you still enjoying it?
Yeah, in many ways. And thanks for the kind words, Adam, because, you know, if there is a common theme in my story, it's, you know, adaptability too. And, you know, that means that you got to know your audience. You got to know the people around you. You got to have some sort of social intellect to understand that what you do or what you say on a daily basis affects everybody around you, and you can set a tone. And I learned that the moment I stepped into a dressing room with some good leaders, and then there were some bad leaders. So you just try to absorb as much as you can through your hockey world, and then you take that blueprint and you kind of put it anywhere you can. And for me, it was early in 1999 to start applying everything I knew out of hockey and being around great people like Mark Messier and Doug Gilmour in the latter parts of my career, and say, you know, why are they great people or great leaders is because of they're inclusive, man. They understand that you're only as good as your weakest link. And if you don't pay attention to that last piece of the puzzle, then the picture isn't complete. So I try to do that at Sportsnet, and I never forgot it. And here I am 21 years later, and to a smaller degree, I'm trying to do that around building a real KYPER at Noon show around some good people that can help me. And my job is to make sure that they understand that I can't do a good job unless, you know, they're right there with me, and making them feel like they're empowered to help the greater cause. So all of it is really based around, you know, that team concept, like you said, being a good team guy and understanding that, you know, if someone's not feeling well or feels like they're not being appreciated, or, you know, they're not feeling great self-esteem, then it's going to affect me. It's going to affect the show. It's going to affect our team. And that's the way it works, man, in this world. And you guys have done that. You guys been at it now. And, you know, if Adam comes not feeling great, it's up to, you know, Steve and Jess to go, what the hell's going on, man? Let's fix this. So you got some great energy and we can get going here. If it doesn't work that way, then the product suffers.
We had one of those conversations yesterday, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So
100%. And even tougher now in a pandemic, for God's sakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Over the phone and everything.
Yeah.
I like, so you talked a little bit about what good leaders do. What does a bad leader do?
Well, ultimately, you your leaders tend to be the better players, right? So I think there has to be a secure feel about that. And while, everybody wants to look great and everybody in a perfect world would love to be the leading scorer and, have all the accolades of being an all-star or, an MVP, ultimately it kind of trickles down, guys, to eventually feeling like, okay, where's the cherry on top? And for a lot of these great players who have gone on to score 1,000 points and maybe 400 or 500 goals, there's a big empty hole if it doesn't come with championships. And then to a smaller degree, there's that whole perception of, yeah, you were a great player, but you didn't ever learn how to win. And that hurts those guys big time. And, you look at watch, the boys on basketball with Shaq and, Charles Barkley. I mean, Charles is missing a championship and it still bothers him deep down. And
Shaq lets him know.
And Shaq lets him know.
Sure tells him.
And fans let him know. So if you're asking me what makes a great leader is someone that understands that it doesn't come down to the number of goals you score, the all-star teams that you're elected on, or individual awards. It comes down to winning championships. And if I have to score less goals to do it and focus a little bit more on you and maybe my personal numbers are affected to raise your level up, then that's what I'm going to do. Because I want to be remembered a champion. I don't want to be remembered as a great all-star that never won any championships. And I think if you're a good leader, you kind of learn that lesson a little earlier, hopefully, to start building those championships. Some take a little bit longer. And I will say this about Steve Yzerman or Ovi, that they crossed that threshold of understanding that I'm going to have to change a little bit. I don't need to score 165 points, Stevie Yzerman, and I don't need to score 60 goals if I'm Ovi. 45 can do it with a Stanley Cup. And good leaders see that, I think, Adam, hopefully earlier than later in their career when maybe it's a little too late.
Do you think that championship mentality is missing from this current Leafs team? And do you think the moves they made this offseason will help that a little?
Well, you really hope that there's a maturity there. Now they're going into their fourth, fifth, and ongoing years. And I would hope that Auston Matthews, as disappointed as he was to not finish last season and hit that magic 50 goal mark, I would hope that it's not first on his list going into whatever season we got now going in. And obviously with 56 games, 54, 52, you're not realistically looking at a 50-goal season. But even if it was a regular year, I would hope that he and Mitch Marner to a lesser extent are looking now and saying, we got to speed up the process here, that it's not about individual accolades. It's got to be about the team winning. And, before we can think about even a Stanley Cup, we got to win a round here, boys. Yeah. We got to win a round. How about getting out of the first round? And that, to me, it should be, we got our money. The money's there. Our signing bonus, it's already collecting interest. I mean, we're good there. But what we don't have is what I spoke of earlier. The belief that, we can be a big piece of a championship right now. That's the main point here, is that Leaf fans aren't going to care about 50 goals because, we look at Rick Vive and he was the first guy to ever do it, but it was at a very difficult time for the Toronto Maple Leafs to have any respect or credibility, and it hurt him so much. He was a great Leaf player, and there are arguments to say that he should be well respected a lot more than he has. There's a lot of reasons why, including many in his book, but it was also the fact that the Leafs were a bit of a joke back then, and that's what the guys want to avoid this time around. They don't want to be a punchline. Who made the most money that could never get out of the first round? Oh, Austin Matthews. Right? No, but I'm serious.
Yeah, there was a very good impression of me there, Kipper.
Yeah, thank you. But you don't want that. That's what you want to avoid more than anything else.
Yeah.
Well, and so in saying that, Nick, I mean, obviously there seems to have been an augmenting, or I don't want to call it a change of philosophy, because I don't know that the Leafs have changed their philosophy necessarily, but they certainly brought in players that were not players that they had been targeting the previous 3 or 4 years, especially the previous 2. Like Lou Lamoriello brought in some guys, I guess, that were a little bit like this, but you have a Zach Bogosian, Joe Thornton, who they wanted for years and years and years. They've done this dance with Joe Thornton. Then obviously TJ Brody's a little bit different, but Bogosian and Thornton and Wayne Simmons to me are all of, to varying degrees, a certain ilk that the team certainly lacked. Do you think, A, that they're going to make a big impact, and B, is it enough?
Well, they've already, they've in many ways, when you read between the lines, from what Kyle Dubas has kind of preached the last little while, he knows they got to get tougher mentally and physically. He knows that now. And under these circumstances with no cap space, you got to make the best out of your situation. And, I look at Wayne Simmons and I go, okay, does he get one last crack here of being the player that we saw in his heyday? And the answer is at 32, he's going to get one more crack at it. Like, he's not old, but he's got a ton of mileage on him. He's an old 32. He's a beat up 32. And people keep telling me it's the best he's felt. He's healthy. He wasn't healthy towards the latter part in Philly. He got really screwed up there. And then when he moved on to Nashville and Buffalo, he still wasn't healthy. And so he's going to get another crack. But more than anything right now, even if their best days are behind them, including Joe, they should at least be able to create a little bit more of an attitude for the Leafs. And while their identity the last few years has been speed and quickness and the ability to put the puck in the net, and they do have those game breakers, but they lack in the other part. And that's the one that's needed most in a 7-game series. And that is that mental and physical toughness. And if they can bring a little bit of that or share it with, the likes of a Matthews, a Marner, a Nylander, even Morgan Riley, who's, I like Morgan a lot, but he's still got to figure out how to take his game to the next level. If they can kind of, have them understand that, from game 1 of the season right to, the playoffs, then they could be better for it. I just don't know in terms of, a guy like Joe Thornton, how often he's going to play, how many games can you sit him out, and how many games when and if they make the playoffs can he play every other night. I mean, that's a big ask for a guy that's, the knees aren't too good.
Yeah.
Something Adam and Jesse know bugs me a lot is whenever I hear a player when their team, let's say they don't make the playoffs or they get eliminated for the playoffs, whenever a player goes, oh yeah, I don't watch the rest of the playoffs. When you played, were you a guy who watched the playoffs?
Yeah, I did. There are, various degrees of guys in the league who can go from it's a job to super fan, where they just can't get enough of it. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to watch other guys stay in it or even win a Stanley Cup, whether or not you've had battles against a certain guy that you hate or it's just sheer, you're envious or jealous of people getting to feel what you wanted and then you've dreamt about. But, Mark Scheifele, I get such a kick out of him because he's a star, but he's probably getting autographs still, at his age. That's how much he loves and breathes and lives for the game. So there's some guys that haven't played in close to a year, guys. Think about that for a second. It's incredible that, and here we are, hopefully, a month away from the season. And these guys are going to have to go back to work real quick.
Well, I'm going to ask you because we talked about the last time you were on, believe it or not, was the World Championships. That's how long it's been. And we were talking about, the team. You said a couple of things that were prescient at the time, like you for sure predicted the future. You said the Leafs that season, that was Matthews' first season, would go as far as Freddie Anderson would take them. And number two, we were talking about all of the Leaf players, especially the younger guys, Morgan Riley, Austin Matthews. I think Mitch Marner was on Team North America as well. Was he not?
No,
we were talking
Riley and Matthews.
So at least those guys were there. And we were saying, like, are they going to be tired for training camp? And you said, no, not at all. They're going to be fine. Okay, so that's a lot of hockey compressed into a short amount of time. And they weren't tired and they were fresh and they were ready to go. And you said when you're 18 or 19, it doesn't matter. When you are in your mid-20s or even your 30s and you go 10 months without playing for some of these guys, are they going to be, yes, they'll be healthier, but are they going to be any good?
Yeah, they're going to be really good.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Now, will they lack consistency at times? Will there be nights where you just go, oh, they don't have it. He doesn't have it. Yes. And we saw it in the bubble. And, there were various degrees of entertainment levels that we saw in the bubble.
Yes.
But for the most part, it's there. It's just how often does it come out or how often do they show it? So we'll see more of that. But it is a young man's league right now. And like I said, there are some guys still that are considered young 30 or 31-year-olds. And then there's others that are older, 30 and 31-year-olds. So I look at a guy like Sid Crosby, who's, I think he's going to be fantastic the moment this thing starts, and you hope that he can stay healthy. But, you don't worry about the level that he can be at. You just worry about, the wear and tear on a guy like that at this point. And that goes to various guys that have been around in the league now for 10, 12, 14 years. That's it. But it's still going to be fantastic. I think this Canadian division is going to be fantastic. And
it'll be fun.
I think it'll be, hopefully, the pandemic doesn't, derail it, because that's the only thing right now that we have to worry about is that, whether or not guys drop off to the point where you can't dress a team. That's the only worry. But as far as the anticipation and the fact that if we go from coast to coast, every team believes that they're better, including the weakest link, the Ottawa Senators. And I think they've spent some wise money, but everybody's got high expectations, and, they better be careful, man. But this Canadian division be so good, the demand to bring it back might be too strong.
You got to put money down. Who's going to be the top Canadian team in the Canadian division in the regular season, and who's going to go the farthest in the playoffs?
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah, I'll take Winnipeg. I'll take Winnipeg all the way around. I really like Connor Hellebuck. I love their forwards. Kyle Connor, to me, is one of the best goal scorers out there. And I think they've gone through a couple of battles already that would, get them tested a little better. I don't believe that Patrick Laine will be in their plans long term. Could he have to stick around one more season before they trade him? Yes. But that's an asset that you could still move at any point this coming season if you get the right defenseman. Yes, they don't have Byfuglien anymore. Trouba at times I thought has been a little overrated. So other than the big hole of Byfuglien being gone, I'm okay with their defense. Still, I got to see it to believe it, and a lot of people do, but I like Winnipeg.
Winnipeg is good. Well, and it's really a Vezina goalie always kind of puts you in the lead, right? So it's if for your money, Nick, in the Canadian division, who will be the biggest disappointment?
I don't. Well, define disappointment? Missing the playoffs?
Based on their expectations. It doesn't have to be missing the playoffs because that may not be like the Senators. That's not their expectation. If they made it, that's great, but probably not.
I think Calgary could disappoint.
Ooh.
And this is after
huge
Markstrom
money
and Tanev. Yeah. I just don't still like the makeup of Sean Monahan and Jonathan Goudreau.
What is it about them that you're just not? We've had issues in the playoffs in terms, or they've had issues in the playoffs with their point production dropping.
Yeah, I just think that they're probably going to get one more crack together. It appears that it's just too hard to move those type of bodies out now. But I do believe that they have contemplated trading Johnny Hockey. Lots of talk about the Flyers going back there, but I just don't have a lot of faith in both of them just yet. And maybe it's just a maturity thing that they're still not ready to understand that the things that we talked about earlier, giving a little bit more of yourself up to raise others. And I don't see it yet from those guys.
How much are you working out your insider muscles these days? Because it seems like you mentioned the Flyers and Gaudreau. There's been Laine to the Flyers. What are you hearing? What are you hearing?
Are you fishing, Steve?
Well, what are you hearing, man?
He's got his own show,
To answer your question, it's not a muscle that I've probably exercised as much as I used to when I was on Sportsnet daily, but I still have a lot of friends, and the conversation can easily go from what you're up to, how are the kids, to I got to get Patrick Laine out of there, so Patrick Laine cannot be a Winnipeg Jet long term. And I've said this for years, and people were looking at me like I had three heads years ago, but you could see the writing on the wall in terms of where he sits in the pecking order. And while they like him, they don't love him. You look at even that first line, like Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor, right? It's like a guy that probably could be making $9 or $10 million right up there with all the rest of the superstars is not, in theory, on your number one line. So they're just committed to more guys, but they're not able to get the deal or the term that they'd like. A lot of teams, including Columbus, would love to have them, but teams are going to have to wait. There's just not a lot. Vegas, George McPhee wants to move Fleury, wants to move Pacioretty's money, willing to shop Riley Smith and Marchessault. Martinez has another year. Those are great players, but you can't find me right now a team that really has money that they want to spend, real dollars, because of this pandemic and their personal situations, or they don't have the cap space to take it on. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are with all of these guys, including Laine.
Wow.
Nick,
sorry, go ahead, Jess.
You spent your entire you were a skill position guy, and then you transitioned to a tough guy to kind of last longer in the NHL. And like throughout the 90s, you fought probably every big tough guy.
Not every.
Not every, most of them.
But I like it that my career fooled you enough that you think I did.
That's the story I'm going to choose to believe. Now we see like Evander Kane come out and he's like, I'm going to box. Is there a guy you fought throughout your career that was the best like technical fighter? Not like the toughest guy, but the guy who had the most skill of standing on skates and just punching a guy in the face?
I never fought him, but I had him as a teammate in junior, and that was Troy Crowder.
Wow.
By far the best technical fighter on skates I've ever seen. And for that reason, he would have scared me as much as a crazy Dave Manson or Bob Probert. And he was so calm. You know, how they describe goalies as sometimes looking and like they're in a rocking chair.
Yep.
He fought like he was in a rocking chair, but everything was absolutely perfect. His balance, his jabs were clean and crisp. He could get your helmet off your head and you wouldn't have even noticed he touched it. I mean, all of that came into play, but you know, as far as just fighting these guys in general, you know, and 6'4", 6'5", some of them, Chris Simon, I fought him. You can find that on the internet. How I wasn't killed that night, I'll never know, but I survived it. It's in the book.
Troy Crowder, by the way, he's always in the Eric Lindros Celebrity Hockey Classic.
Yeah.
I have met him. He's a very tall man, and he's got that look on his face where, like, when he's looking you in the eyes, he's guessing how many calories you are. You could definitely tell he used to fight.
Oh, he's a sharp guy too. A really smart guy, methodical guy, and never would have had the longevity to want to even hang in there and do that for 15 or 20 years. I mean, that was you just knew that even when I knew him at 17 and 18 years of age, that he wasn't a lifer. He took it as far as he wanted to. And when the time was right, he got out, but he could have easily been considered one of the best all time in that, but he was too smart to hang in there for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That it does. You do take, you know, there's miles that come along with that. Nick, you, one of the fascinating things from us from a broadcasting perspective is you know, your Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, huge broadcast names. And obviously there's an enormous amount of change happening in the industry that none of us are immune to. But obviously the and I don't know how it went down, contract expires, whatever happens, but you've done what you always do, which is you started a business and your business is now your broadcasting. And I'm just curious as to like how this all came together for you, because, you know, it's pretty obvious. You work for ESPN, you work for TSN, you work for Fox Sports or Sportsnet or whatever. You are able to you're an employee, you walk in, this is your job, and then you leave. This time, you know, you are applying all of the business sense that you've picked up from other things that you've had and applying it to the job that you had for 20 years. And I wanted to know where the idea came from, and B, how's it going? Yeah.
Well, thanks for asking. And I think it's going well, but you know, often, as I've proven in the book, I'm the last to know. So, I will say this, that I was blessed to have a long-term contract with Sportsnet at 8 years, and I was coming up just in the latter few years, and it was in the back of my mind that I wanted to start thinking about short-term and long-term goals, and a lot has happened in the industry, and it just came to the conclusion that if I'm going to make a clean break, I got to do it now. And I want to do it while I'm in my early 50s, opposed to, you know, thinking about trying to transition, you know, in my late 50s or in my 60s, and whether or not I'd have the energy to do all of that. So I wanted to start thinking a few years ago about different avenues to go. And one of the projects that I kind of swore myself onto was to try to do something completely away from the game of hockey. I've done it, and I've known it since I was 7 years old. And this past season was the first time, you know, since I first started playing hockey, that I did not have either a season to get ready for as a player or one as a broadcaster. And I was totally free. And in many ways, it was one of my best seasons to just take a deep breath for the first time. So one of those projects was, believe it or not, you know, to start a company. And my wife and I had talked on a number of occasions, and, you know, over a family friend dinner in Creemore, believe it or not, we just started talking about these beverages. And, you know, the idea of forming Little Buddha was born on that night. and we knew that they were high in demand, and there was an escalation going on with those, and then there was a bit of a flat line on beer and wine, and then we just started on a checklist of what things that we liked about certain drinks, what we didn't, and then had a wish list. So on that wish list, of course, was organic, no sugar, gluten-free, keto-friendly. You think I even knew what the hell keto-friendly was on that night? I'm like, oh yeah, keto-friendly. Then I call my daughter over and I go, what the hell is keto-friendly? So I had a lot to learn. But my smartest move of all, I think, was, putting my wife in charge of it. So she runs the day-to-day operations with one other partner, Kimberly. And you want things done, man, get women to make the decisions. That's how things get done around here anyways.
For sure. I definitely get that.
Yeah. So that to me was something that was real important to me. I was also fortunate enough to be offered an opportunity to book with Perry Lefko and Simon and Schuster. And of course, our fearless digital leader there has done that project as well with your book, Steve. And it was a fun project as well.
And then of course the show, Nick.
Yeah, and the show, and it's kind of evolved a little bit. I wanted to do something, but I just wanted to make sure that if I do it, it's done as well as I can think it can at this time. And I was able to partner up with a Canadian company in the online gambling sector, and we know it's trying times for everybody, but they're off and running, and they gave me a platform to kind of do what I'm comfortable with, and that's talk hockey for an hour. I found Doug McLean, under a bridge, and it's good to go. It's
a bridge that he probably owns between his 14 houses.
Yeah. That bridge, by the way, is a mansion.
I bet it is.
So it's been fun, and I can get to do it at my own pace. And, Sportsnet's got all the games, and we're going to watch them every night, and it'll be spectacular. But I get to kind of take a deep breath and enjoy it instead of being on the other side. And that's not a bad thing.
We talked about how a book is written. And when I wrote mine, I had no idea how to. So the analogy I came up with is my wife likes to do puzzles by assembling all the outside pieces first.
Yeah.
I like to find a bunch of pieces that look alike and put it together in chunks.
Usually the biggest ones.
So I wrote a chapter that was randomly in the middle called You Have to Know the Game. What was the first chapter you wrote?
Well, I wanted to name my book It's All Greek to Me. They're like, it's not hockey enough. I'm like, okay, but that basically is my first chapter is, growing up and being introduced to hockey by my Greek immigrant father, who the only ice he knew was in his drink, but he fell in love with the Leafs, much like you did growing up, Steve. So watching him watch the game kind of fascinated me a little bit. And it was a black and white TV, and hearing the play-by-play call of Foster Hewitt. Maybe it was Bill Hewitt at the time, maybe. But it was a Hewitt. It was fascinating to me. And, he also worked at a steakhouse in downtown Toronto called Bardi's. And I'm not sure what's happened through the pandemic, but last time I checked, it was still there. And every once in a while, he would tell me stories about serving the Chicago Blackhawks and Bobby Hull and Tony Esposito, and sometimes escorting them to the cab.
That's kind of
and
good story.
I was fascinated by all of it, and then asking them as often as I could, can I go to a game? Can I go to a game? And tickets back then were as hard as they are today. That never wavered in my lifetime. And I'm 54. That Leaf tickets were hard to get to. So that first visit was a game changer for me. Kansas City Scouts, I think.
Wow.
74, I think, was my first game. And I go into the rink and I'm like, Dad, how come I don't hear the guy saying who has the puck? And he's like, oh, no, son, that's just for TV.
Yep. My first game was, I think, 1996 or 1997, the Rangers and Leafs. Rangers won, of course.
How old were you?
God, I was 9. I would have been 9. Yeah, 9 years old. And it was way back. It was, who was the in-arena announcer? His first name was Paul something.
Paul Morris.
I sat beside his booth. That's how it was, an obstructed view. And I sat beside his booth while he did the announcements. I thought that was kind of cool. But like, we were like last row in the back, Maple Leaf Gardens. It was a long, long way back.
Toronto goal scored by number 32.
That's right.
How many times did you hear that?
I think once or twice. But I honest to God, I remember scoring my goal against LA. And I'm like, and I don't know who's beside me, maybe Ty or somebody. I'm like, shut up. Toronto goal. And I'm like, okay, now what is it?
I got it.
Paul's done now. Now you can speak to me.
Now you may speak. I'm so dumb. I was looking up, the first game I ever went to was February 5th, 1994. And I'm like, I wonder if Kyper was on that team. No, you weren't. You were busy winning a cup with the Rangers that year.
That's right.
Against two in 94.
Red Wings.
Oh,
Red
Leafs lost.
Yeah. Yeah. They had not started their charge till after the lockout, basically, in 95.
Yeah.
So you guys okay with everything around the league? You're okay? I know Brian Burke was on with you guys, pushing hard for the owners to get more money. I hope he's not disappointed.
Do you think Brian's got a bias, Nick? Are you suggesting that?
Oh my!
Or a point of view?
Listen, he's management. Doug McLean's management. Bill Waters was management. I took them all on.
Yeah. Well, I think people thought too. There were a lot of people asking in the comments if he was drinking a highball while he was talking to us.
Yes, I noticed the bucket he had.
Yes.
He was sipping something.
Diet Coke and ice and maybe something else. Who knows?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Well, all kidding aside, I'm glad Gary dropped it essentially. And because it was going to get ugly, guys. It was, and I think he's smart enough to understand that this is just not the fight you want right now if you're the owners.
I'm surprised he got the owners on board with that because they can be notoriously difficult to deal with.
Not all of them. There's a few ticked off, but he's got enough where he's comfortable with. And at the end of the day, guys, it's 2020. These franchises are now worth anywhere between $700 million and $1 billion. If your pockets aren't deep enough to withstand this for 1 year, then you know what? Get out. Put the for sale sign. I know 5 different ownership groups that would love tomorrow to cut a deal and be the new owners and not bitch and whine about the next year. So that's where we're at right now with some of these owners. It's ugly. And we know it's going to be ugly for you, but guess what? It's going to be ugly for the players. All the lockouts and the strikes in the last little while, 4 in total. This could have been a 5th since, early 90s. There was always a winner and a loser. And this is one where we know there's 2 losers. The players are going to lose and the owners are going to lose. So misery loves company. Get along.
Make it happen. And you know what? There's a TV deal at stake here. Like if they don't play this season, and this is the one thing the players have, the U.S. TV deal, I believe, is up at the end of this year. And if they don't have a product to sell or a recent, it's going to affect what, let's see, it's NBCSN or potentially, they go back to ESPN like they had for 25, 30 years in the 80s and 90s. I mean, you're not going to get a buyer for this product if you haven't played.
Well, Adam, there's a million reasons, outside of the economics between the players and the owners that you're going to want to play. And you're right. You are looking at the next deal, and you do want to burn those games, whether it's 56, 62, it doesn't really matter, 50. What really matters is to Sportsnet and NBC is 2 months of the playoffs. That's where the money's made, and that's where the majority of the income comes in. So as long as they get 2 months of playoff hockey every night, they'll be fine. And we assume that NBC is going to stick around in some capacity on the next deal. Whatever they don't get in, you can make up in small ways. But even this whole stupid standoff the last 3 weeks wasted a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, the NBA is going to start, before Christmas. And now you're pushing it to January 13th. All you've done is given a lot of people reason to get emotionally attached to NBA for 3 weeks, longer than you, which I think is, not a great thing for the NHL. But I can't see them wanting to push it much more than January 13th. I hope the only thing that, unfortunately happens is that it's because of pandemic reasons, not because these guys found another way to not get along. They got to get going right away.
To maybe talk about something happier than the owners and players not getting along. We talked a lot about championships, man. And you got this new venture going on, Real KYPER at noon. I see it right behind you. What would have to happen? Because you're not going to get a performance review from a boss. Yeah. What would have to happen for you to feel like you've won a championship?
I don't, what is a championship? Is it the most viewers? Is it, number one podcast? I don't know what it is. This is all so new to me. I think at the end of the day, the championship for me is just shutting the lights off and thinking that I informed or entertained, or I made someone, I took their mind off their problems for an hour. It's all in the eye of the beholder, Steve. So I think for the most part, I just want to feel good at the end of the day. And if I can come here and share a few laughs, a few stories, get my buddy Doug McLean, involved, talk to guys like you, and maybe take some of the people out there, their minds away from their everyday issues, then that's a win for me. That's a championship. That works. I'm good.
There you go.
He's got the real thing.
Yeah. He does have the real championship too. That helps.
Yes. Yeah.
You hit 50,000 views on a video, cup ring, same thing.
I often say this, and whether it was, and maybe it's just not really nice of me, but all those years at Sportsnet, whether it was Darren Millard or Elliot Friedman, there'd be the presentation, and then you'd see the look on the guy's face when he first lifts the cup, and I kind of nudge Elliot or Darren Millard, and I say, I know what that feels like.
You'll always have that. You'll always have that.
I'm telling you, it works with the NBA. It works for the Super Bowl. It works for everybody. It's awesome. And that's what the players want.
Yes, absolutely. That feeling. Nick, we know that Steve is going to be on your show in a few minutes here.
We are doing a home and home.
This is great.
This is part A.
Right.
And now we're going to part A. I don't want to say B.
I like that. Yeah, that works.
We're going to double A now.
That's right.
I'll have a few more of these. It'll work.
So, Steve, so all you watching right now or listening, just shift it over to the Real KYPER at noon. Make sure you subscribe. And we got part double A with the Dangle Man.
That's right. And sometimes Doug McLean too, which we love. So
yes.
everybody.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna have all you guys on with Doug McLean because
that'd be great.
We really want to piss him off. Okay. So and I want at least 5 times throughout the show when we all do it together where one of you goes, I don't know how it was like back in your day, Doug, but this is the way it is now. If you can say that at least 5 times, I would be very grateful.
And just watch his face turn beet red.
Watch him. It'll be like a cartoon red face.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be awesome.
Nick, how many times does he bring up the fact that he drafted Rick Nash when we do that show?
I have to sip this.
Okay, all right.
We've got the little Buddha game that revolves around Mac mentioning Rick Nash.
Okay,
amazing.
I love that.
That's
I love that. So, Nick, let's start with Little Buddha. Where do we find it?
Little Buddha right now is in the LCBO in Ontario. We wanted to crawl before we walk and walk before we run, but it was an amazing 5 months where we sold over 20,000 cases of the grilled pineapple and rosemary. Guys, just not pineapple. Grilled.
Yeah. It's important. It's important.
I don't know what the hell that
Got to
means.
grill that pineapple.
So we were able to do that, and to the point where now that we're going to do a second flavor, a peach tea, and that'll come out in the spring in the LCBO. But we are branching out, and we know you guys are worldwide right now. So we are in Alberta. We're in about 40 or 50 stores in Alberta right now. And we hope by the end of the month, we're in Saskatchewan as well. And then maybe this time next year, right across the country, which is exciting for us. We didn't even know if we could sell one. So we're really excited and really happy about it. And right now, for everybody in Ontario, head over to the LCBO. And if you're in the US or anywhere else in the world, hang on. You never know.
And also the book, Undrafted, obviously available in hard copy, available online.
Yes, online, Amazon.com, Chapters, Indigo. Even went and picked up some toothpaste at Shoppers Drug Mart, and lo and behold, there was my face on a shelf there too. So
that's cool.
That's gotta be Shoppers. I didn't get
Shoppers Drug Mart. Yeah. So still get, kind of get used to seeing yourself on a book. It just doesn't seem right, but who am I to complain after all these years?
Well, congratulations on everything, Nick. It's great to it's great to have you on again. Great to talk to you. I know we've crossed paths several times, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, and just for the record, the last time we were together, I did tell you this story that I never told before that is in my book, and that was the China Club story on waiting in line and how you don't wait in line. If anybody has not heard it on your show before, it's also in my book Undrafted. But I did not share with you that that movie or that story did make it to the Messier household, where Mark had a lot of explaining to do to his son.
No way!
Oh yeah. Dad, why would you do that to the St. Louis Blues?
Well,
Why
I guess
not?
that's just how the cookie crumbles there, Mark.
Well, son, you want to win in this world?
That's incredible.
That's
I
good.
love that.
Yeah.
Well,
So I just
hey,
wanted to
awesome.
share that with you guys.
That's
Fantastic.
That's pretty amazing. So Nick, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope this isn't the last. I hope it's not 4 years again. We'd love to have you on anytime.
No. We're good to go. All you got to do is put the on button, and I'm ready to go, guys. Anytime.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Right.
Well, we can't wait for that crossover episode. That's going to be fun. You tell McLean that we're coming for him. Even though he has no idea who we are, I don't even expect him to know our names, and that's totally cool. But big fans of him, big fans of you. Get Nick's book, Undrafted. Buy his Little Buddha as well, so you can have some fun over the holiday season. And let's get this NHL back. Nick, thank you so much for your time.
Adam, Jess, my pleasure. Steve, I'll see you on the back end.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So not a bad show. Chris Johnston and Nick Kypreos. When we were starting this show, I don't think we could have ever dreamed a guest like that. I
The
gotta be
same
honest.
show.
No.
Same show.
And we didn't even Kipper showed up on the screen. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
It's like
forgot.
seeing an old friend. Do you guys know he jerseyed me on BT?
Yeah, you were
I've
in
seen
skates.
that clip. Yeah.
We were on fake ice on BT, and he literally, it wasn't just like my jacket. He took my shirt, like my button up shirt. Like I was in a suit, and he put it over my head, and my belly's like hanging out.
Yeah, you deserved it.
I was just
100%.
I was just doing the demo with him. I didn't do anything.
Oh, if Nick jerseyed you, you probably deserved it.
Yeah,
Feathers all over the set. Yeah, pigeon. Well, it was awesome.
you talked about the look that Troy Crowder had. Nick has that look, by the way, because when we did that, he just skated towards me, and it was like, and he didn't even push. Like he didn't. There was no push on whatever. He just had that look like the David Clarkson eyes, and I was like, I'm in big shit. Like
He's got it a little bit with Nick. I find you see it on his face. Like he's got the scars, he's got the jaw, his hands.
yes,
These hands have done very little punching, you can tell.
yeah,
His have done an exceptional amount. Troy Crowder's got the look. The only, like, it's hard to have a coworker who is nice that you're so afraid of. Like you have no reason to be afraid of this person. But that is how I would describe Bob McGill.
Big Daddy.
Holy shit. I can't look him in the face.
No,
I can't. He's terrifying.
Terrifying, and
He's
a good broadcaster too.
It's man. He I got something wrong when I was at Leafs TV. I can't remember if I put this in the book. But the Windsor Spitfires were hot shit. And I got a record wrong. They broke so many OHL records that year. I thought they had the junior hockey record for wins in a season, and I was wrong. I think it was the OHL one, or maybe it was the Knights. I can't remember. Anyway, the junior hockey record for wins in a season, though, did not belong to the Windsor Spitfires. And he told me that because he overheard me having this conversation. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's the Spitfires. He goes, it wasn't. I was on the team that had the most wins in junior hockey history. And just the look. I'm just, whatever you say, and I had to call him Big Daddy.
Wow.
And also sir. And also just apologize every time I saw him.
Wow.
Most professional athletes, like especially the ex-professional athletes that we run into over the course of our jobs, there's a stature to them, and you're like, okay, I understand why you did this as a job, and the rest of us did this for fun in high school.
I wasn't scared of Kyle Wellwood.
No.
I wasn't. No, there's a difference.
But there are, like, you meet Gary Roberts, and you're like, if you've ever met Gary Roberts,
Terrifying.
He's different. He's built different. He's just different. And he's about as polite as they come, but I sure wouldn't want to cross Gary Roberts.
Adam introduced me to Ty Domi at I don't remember what that was.
I don't know either.
But you introduced me to Ty Domi.
Yeah.
And I just, hi Ty. Oh yeah, I liked your book. And he just goes, what was your favorite chapter? And the look, and I told him because he thought I was lying. Right? I go, the one where you talk about punching Ed Balfour in the face. And he just and it was another all right.
Yeah.
But he looked through me for a few seconds before going, all right, very good.
He would be a fun guest. He would be a fun guest to have. I think one day I might pull some strings and put in that request because
I'll just have to look down the whole time because I'm not looking at him.
Ty is full of great stories and a good guy, talkative guy. It'd be fun to have.
But
him
if
on.
it's Kyle Wellwood, Steve won't care, so don't do it.
No,
I don't care. I just won't be afraid.
Kyle Wellwood is like what Zach Hyman is now. Like they're both extremely smart, very, very smart people. Like Kyle Wellwood's the kind of guy who'd be like reading a physics textbook on the bus. Like he was a very different dude for what the team was back then. And I feel bad for Kyle Wellwood because I feel like in this era, he would have done really, really well with his skill set. Like
he's a wrong era guy.
He is a wrong era guy. He was right at the era where it was starting to happen, but it's still, hockey moves slow, as we know. And I think if he was 10 years younger, coming in the league in the last 10 years, he would have been, he's probably a 50 or 60 point player for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And he was pretty good in Winnipeg too. Anyway, long story
Tim
short,
Stapleton too, another Leaf
who's a KHL leader all time.
He was always in the All-Star game. He might still hold the Marlies record for points in a season. I'm not sure. Yeah. Extremely good. Came to the NHL, scored a goal with his ass.
I remember that.
but just never really found a consistent spot. And he was another guy who found a job in Winnipeg for a while, but just not enough.
Nigel Dawes is another guy I always think about, like what Rico Fata for Calgary fans. Another guy
Rico
like
Fata.
Rico Fata had unbelievable speed. If he had, and I think Daniel Tkachuk as well, who people forget about. The lost Tkachuk, who I don't believe is related to the other Tkachuks. He was another Calgary first round pick. Those are guys that were good, skilled players. I think Tkachuk ran into some head injuries, unfortunately. But those guys, I think, in this era, man, scary. They would have been
Steve
scary.
Correa?
Yes. Blistering. And he was one of the best video game player pickups you could have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any of those fast guys from the early 2000s and any of those NHL games are just cheat codes.
Merrick Vatos.
And they always give them there you go, Merrick Vatos. Yes.
I love it.
And they always give them like an extra sniper rating too, because they're little guys and they're fast, so they get a little cheat code.
So they might snipe as well.
Yeah.
In real
They
life,
have good
they've got, like,
shot
a
because they're
muppet
small.
shot.
But Adam, who do you got to counter them with? You got to counter them with Matt Sundin and Eric Lindros.
Like Eric Lindros looked like you took Eric Lindros and just tried to tamp him down a little bit, so he just got squatter. Like NHL 99,
He's like a cube.
He is a cube. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
With
And
a
he's
head.
the size of the circle. Like they get him into the circle and there's Eric Lindros coming up against Matt Sundin. And then there's Scott Stevens over here. And like, it's just, there are all these, there's these big fat, they were fat. They were literally fat in that game.
Yeah.
Anyway, good
Yes.
times. Good times. And I remember that.
Where were we talking about?
I loved NHL 99 because you could beat teams like Italy and England and stuff like that too. That was the first time they did that like world sort of thing. And I think they made up all the player names, but it was still pretty cool.
Oh, everyone's probably done something where like you play video games against an older cousin who's clearly better than you, and you're Team Canada and you make them be Italy. And like one year I was playing my cousin, I was like, okay, I have to be Canada, you be Italy, and you have an empty net. I lost.
I used to practice against the CPU on like NHL 10. So I would be an AHL team and I would make the CPU Team Canada, and I put it to the hardest skill level so that I could try and get better at the game.
That's practice.
Beat up all my friends. So
Steve,
that's what I do in my bedroom.
Yo, I think Steve used to do that too. Didn't you, Steve? Weren't you like the Oshawa Generals once, and you played Team Canada on very hard, and you barely eked out a win with our friend Derek?
And when I tell you we celebrated like we for real played the game, like
we did the same thing when we did our. We came over to your house, got drunk, and did a Stanley Cup run, and that seventh game, second round win. Like we were in when double overtime, and Jesse scored. That was insane.
And we all had the same reaction. We all dropped our controllers at once. Thanks for ruining the controllers. Jesse goes running, and we start chasing after him. We hug and we scream, and my wife was asleep.
Yeah.
Thank God you didn't have a baby.
Anymore. Oh
Yeah,
my
right?
God.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine? No, I want him to be exposed to that.
Yeah.
You gotta,
That's joy.
well, because my dad liked listening to loud rock music, and they would tiptoe around the house when they brought me home. And the doctor was like, no, that's actually really bad for the kid. You need to get him used to the noise.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to get, I mean, Leo is not entering a quiet house.
No.
So I'm trying to get him used to the noise. We made him cry the other day. I felt bad because he rolled over for the first time, and we got it on camera and everything, and he rolls over and we go, yeah!
You got scared?
Because we scared him with the yay.
Hey,
It
man,
wasn't that he flipped over.
They cry at everything, babies. Like they just flipping.
Oh,
Now wait till they're like they want whatever it is you have. So when I go for a walk with Everly, and now I have like it's a half walk, half baby carriage thing. So I'll have her in it for a bit, and then I'll walk her a little bit because she's walking, and then she gets a little tired, so I put her back in. But if I go to Starbucks and grab a coffee, she has to have a cup as well. Otherwise, she gets super pissed.
Oh.
So I always, and then she tips it up whenever I tip it up, and she knows how to cheers. And like
that's the cutest thing I've ever heard of.
And this is how we learn that Adam's feeding his baby coffee.
That's right. No, she doesn't get anything in. It's empty. Caffeinated babies.
I'm waiting for the crossover episode when Everly meets Leo.
Oh,
The day that happens will be amazing.
We did sort of have that FaceTime yesterday with them, and she was interested, but she was being all shy. She was doing I'm going to put my fist in front of my face, like Jesse. The first 3 years on this podcast, we do it.
Hey.
It's like, Jesse, we're not going to know what he looks like when he does this.
There was a time where Jesse would speak and Adam and I would be like,
whoa.
Like, we'd look over because we're like, whoa.
Like, so sometimes on the morning show, TJ will be like, he'll be like, yeah, Jesse's been a hard guy to get to know, but I'm glad I got to know him. I'm like, it took me 5 years to get to know Jesse, for God's sakes. Like,
Jesse was earnestly upset we learned his birthday.
Oh my God, that was a terrible day.
What was that?
Why?
I remember when we used to do the podcast at Adam's house, and I would take the GO train down, and I'd get off at Union Station, and I would then streetcar or walk from Union Station to Adams. And then like, I don't know, 2 months in, no, probably more than that. It was like 6 months after we started. And I was doing that. I learned that Adam would drive to Union Station and pick up Steve, who was also getting off the train at the same time. And they would let me walk or streetcar over to Adams.
Who's they?
Steve would get a drive every day.
I didn't know.
So you
I
can
did not
understand
know.
how when they're disrespecting me like this, when I just started on the podcast, when I might be a little reluctant to share details. When they can't even pick me up when they're already going to the location where I'm at.
To be fair, and this is funny, I only owned a car with one extra seat in it at that time.
Yeah, and somebody got the seat every single time.
And I also didn't know that you were doing that because you didn't talk, man. You didn't talk.
You knew where I lived. It was in Mississauga.
It was far.
And I transited.
You sure
How
did.
Did you think I got there? I flew? No, I didn't.
I never asked.
Transportation.
You're right, man. That was a dick move. I'm sorry. It was shitty. You know what? It was just like ignorance, like full-blown ignorance. So yeah, there's no excusing that.
No,
anyway,
I'm still waiting for you to make it up.
Well, I'll figure out a way, Jess. I will.
7 years later.
I do own a
Toronto's
car with
really
a back
warm
seat now.
all the
If it
time.
makes you feel better.
In your pickup truck? Put me in the back?
Yeah, you're more than
In the
welcome to
bed?
jump in that anytime.
Okay. I'll lay flat in the bed.
Yeah. Well, listen, you know what? This was a lot of fun, guys. This was a really, it feels honestly, I don't know I don't know if you guys are feeling this. I think a little bit with the gray skies in Toronto and just a little bit of like the owners and players fighting. And, I'll be honest with you, it's been a tough year. Personally, it's been a tough year professionally because, it's completely changed how we're going to do things on the radio in the best way. It's tested us. It's put us in a position where, we've got to go out and earn it all over again. But I was feeling a little down. So it feels great to get into this and what a fun show. So thanks so much, boys. I appreciate it. It was great.
Tough year for the world, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I don't think it's abnormal to say, yeah, I was having a bit of a tough day. So anyway, listen, we're going to be back next week. And as we told you, we're going to stick to 1 week. We will take some time off around Christmas because we know, as well as you do, that as soon as that NHL season starts, it's going probably through next summer. So, my understanding is that even at this point, the Stanley Cup may not even be awarded till the second or third week of July. So we got lots of runway ahead, lots of shows ahead. And you know what, frankly, some pretty cool announcements coming. We're very, very excited about. So I'm jacked for 2021. I hope you are too. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back next Wednesday.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Connection complete.